When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall be sight. The clouds be rolled back as the scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
Happy Sabbath. I hope and trust that we are doing all well, and the Lord has been with us, and we've been blessed by what we've been having so far from our different experiences, the different worship experiences that we did have. So I welcome you again to episode 10 on the story of unfulfilled dreams. And yes, time does fly. So yeah, today our topic, as you might have seen on the flyers, on the posters, the title for today is called The Path Not Taken. You might be wondering, where is this coming from? And which path is this? How does one find themselves in this kind of path? So if you want to know more, keep staying, keep watching. So today for our text of consideration, as we introduce this, I want us to look at a text from 1 Kings chapter 19 from verse 1 up to verse 10. I'll try and read and jump here and there, and also verse 14, and explain why this particular topic. So I'll read in your hearing. Verse 1 says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more so, if I do not make your life of one of them about this time. Verse 3, and when he saw that, he arose and ran for and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. Verse 4, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die, and said, it's enough now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Verse 5, then as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. Verse 6, then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals. Let me jump that. Verse 7, the angel of the Lord comes back the second time and says, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. So he arose and ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. Verse 9, and there he went into a cave and spent the night in that place, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? So he said, I've been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel is forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed the prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. Verse 14 is more or less the repetition of verse 10. I've been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, and they seek to take my life also. So may God add a blessing to the reading of his word. So this is Elijah. I'm sure some of us may remember the story. Elijah, just after he had stood for God at the Mount Carmel, he's been there, he's worked miracles, fire has been there, and he has leaked all that water and the sacrifice. And here he finds himself being threatened by Jezebel. So after he's threatened by Jezebel, now he just decides, I'm going to run. So as he starts running, he runs and he goes where he had no idea where he was going, and he ran for his life. And when he was running for his life, he goes to Beersheba, and so as he gets to Beersheba, he leaves his servant. So I want us to look at this path that Elijah was walking. That is what I want us to look at. This is a path where he had, number one, he had tried to stand for God, where everyone else in the area, he had decided they were going to be doing otherwise. Number two, he had still been faithful enough, even amidst all this, even amidst all the, the Lord had worked through him in a way that had never been before because of this thing that he had done. So now he finds himself stuck. He doesn't know what to do, and he just decides he was going to take this path. So as he's running, number one, he runs, and number one, he leaves his servant. So one of the things that we need to realize that some of the paths that we may need to take that are not so easy, that may not be popular, we may need to leave some people who we may be used to being with. Elijah's servant was the servant that he was with all the time. But as he runs and he's trying to find comfort and consolation, he says, no, the servant should live there. So number one, in this path that we sometimes have to take, we may need to let go of some friendships. Some of the people we dearly hold dear, we may have to let them go. Number two, he says it's enough. So some of the paths that we also have to take are paths that may have us at a point where we almost giving up. We're like, why, it feels so hard, and we may be like, it's enough. He actually asks God that he may die. He's putting his self-worth. He says, I'm not better than my fathers. I'm trying. I hoped I was going to make a change, but I think I'm just not better than any of my fathers. So we may find ourselves at the verge of giving up, doubting our capabilities. And then it's a path that is not populated. As we heard in the story, he says what? He says, I'm the only one who's left. Of course, God then tells him that there were 700 other people who had been hid. But he says, I'm the only one who's been left. So some of the paths that we may need to take as we travel this journey of life are paths that are not even populated. And we may find ourselves in those kind of scenario. And then he then runs into a curve and he hides himself. And as we find ourselves in this path that we dread so much, we may not even want people out there to even know what we're up to, what we're doing. We just find it so hard. It's too hard. We trying to find our stance in this life. But as always, what we are talking about in this show, it's to remind us that somehow, some way, someone has experienced what you've experienced before, where you probably think, I need to hide myself. I can't stand people knowing all this that I'm going through, this path and stuff like that. Elijah has gone before that, has gone before us in that regard. So in that regard, so today we continue and we look at this path that is not taken. So as always, I'm excited. So today our we have Joseph Muchobo joining us today as we look at the story of his life that we've called that we've decided to talk about, saying a path not taken. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you for the welcome. I'm quite pleased to be here, even though it's a bit uneasy, but it's fine. So thank you.
Thank you for accepting to be here with us. Okay, so
Okay.
as always, as we start with our show, some of the people who are watching are maybe people who know you, and some may not be people who know you. Some people have no idea who you are. So tell us, who is Joseph?
I think I would say that Joseph is a curious person who is, I would like to use this new term, an extroverted introvert. Yeah, I knew you were going to laugh. I'm also an Adventist for the last 9 years. And by tribe or clan, I come from Gutu in Masvingo, but I'm born and bred in Harare. And now I'm here in Germany, where I'm still progressing in my career. So I think, in short, that would be what the average person might need to know about who Joseph is.
Okay, so Joseph is a curious individual who happens to come from Shingo and was born and bred in Harare and is staying
Yes.
in Germany currently.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for. I hope I tried to summarize it very well. So first time you heard that there's this show that we are having, and I told you, and you know that there's the story called The Story of Unfulfilled Dreams. What came to your mind? What comes to mind when you hear the title, The Story of Unfulfilled Dreams? Is it something that you relate to, or you just like it's a program like any other program?
So I think the first reaction was quite like, is this show about just people regretting, or is this a show about like a pity party, or like people just being sorrowful over dreams which didn't come true? And then I remember like watching the first one, and then I actually kind of, okay, fine. So I saw the part of me which identified with the title is one whereby everyone has dreams, and not all dreams come true, for the good or for worse. So I think this is the part where I identified with the title, that every story, every life has different pathways that it could have taken, or different dreams that the owner of the life or the liver of the life would have wanted to pursue, but not each and every one of them comes true. And this is the part for me which I identify with.
Nice, interesting. It's amazing how somehow we all have a story somehow, and
Yes.
sometimes life does not give us the card we think we deserve, what we expect to be happening as we plan. So yeah, tell me something. When you're a child, when you're a young guy, when you're a young child, when you're in primary school, whatever, what did you see yourself becoming? What did you want to be? Yeah, what did you want to be when you're a child? What in all aspects, career, spiritual, what did you dream of becoming?
I think like every other kid, like every other person, let me start like that. That every person has dreams which they always have, like from childhood as they grow up. And also like every other person, these dreams always change. Because normally when you're a kid, you are always upholding these like the careers that you want to be are like these stereotypical good ones, like a soldier, a policeman, a doctor, a teacher. I remember one person in my primary school classroom was like, I want to be a police dog. All of these are funny things, and, and like this. But for me, when I was a kid in primary school, I remember that one of the things that I quite saw myself being was maybe like in sports, because I was quite fond of cricket, but my body was not made for that stuff. Uh, yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, so I couldn't pursue that for obvious reasons. But then I remember when I was around grade 5, I was now doing acting. We did some acting, and I enjoyed it in music. And as I went to high school now, that's when I fell in love with English, with the English language, and with the whole concept of language per se, like words, how a word can mean so many different things depending on how it's placed. And from then onwards, I then had this dream of like actually becoming a lawyer and a writer of books. So I would read a lot of books, a lot of novels, and I then also, like, parallel to this dream, or maybe as a consequence of this, I thought maybe I would become a politician, like the president or something like this. So this was like the thing. So I was always like, okay, I'll become a lawyer and I'll write books. And in parallel to this career, I'll venture into politics. So this was the progression of like my dreams. But I was doing all of these things while pursuing education in the scientific field.
Wow, interesting. So you still wanted to be in the scientific field, but you had all these dreams from being a politician and lawyer. So Patience Magidi just said you would make a good soldier. But yeah,
I'm not brave enough to be a soldier. But to answer your question, I was not necessarily having these dreams while thinking of becoming a scientist. The way our education is based in Zimbabwe is that you are on, like, it's normally like the people who are the smartest are kind of directed towards a path which does not necessarily exactly. So in my case, I think the most particular reason why it was like this was that, if I remember well, I had an A in O level, I had an A in literature, and an A in economics, and an A in history, right? And then an A in physics and biology. So generally, when someone has these grades, the general tendency is to put them to the science classes, not necessarily say, you have an A in the literature. Do you want to do this? So, and you also don't want to kind of take the risk of actually going into science, into arts, because it's quite risky given like the environment which I grew up in, which we are all familiar with. So I had these dreams, but I understood how problematic they would be to actually kind of pursue and realize.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, it's true. So somehow when you manage to find yourself in the top of the class, somehow our education system has made us look like everyone has to find themselves in the science class. And students again say that it's in the name, Joseph the Dreamer. Okay. So, well, let's proceed. As we proceed, my next question says, so have you turned out to be the person you hope to be? I haven't had you in politics, eh? And
Yeah.
the lawyer bit, I don't know about that. So, have you turned out to be the person you hoped you'd be? Or like, or if not, by the time you got here, so if not, what's your current role like? What do you do right now? What do you do if you haven't turned out to be any of those things that you're talking about?
So I think I'll start by saying what I do now, and then go into the other aspect of the question, which might need a longer response. So now I'm doing a PhD in quantum physics and atom optics. And in my particular project, it also involves a bit of nanotechnology. So this is what I'm doing. So if I were to look for an application of what I do, since it's something that many people might not be quite conversant with. So I work with cold atoms, like ultra cold atoms. So now, like the body temperature of a person is like 37 degrees Celsius. But the atoms that we work with are like minus 272.99999 degrees Celsius. So it's almost close to the absolute zero of 0 Kelvin. So we do this because they allow us to measure things which, like the gravitational field of the Earth. And measuring this actually helps predict and estimate, for example, the rate of climate change, because we can measure how much ice has melted. We can also measure the movement of water, like the water patterns. So these help, so sometimes you just read the North Pole is melted by this much. We actually use the stuff that we do sometimes to estimate those things. So the science is abstract, but the application is fundamental for human survival. But as to whether this is what I wanted, it's not really, because physics by definition or by itself is quite difficult. And I think it would be foolish or brave to venture into it, let alone to venture into quantum physics. But it was more like a culmination of things, which then got me to do this physics. Because as I was saying, when I got to my O level, I was doing, I think, 10 subjects. And I remember I had 8 A's and 2 B's, a B in English and a B in Shona. And when it came time to choose combinations, I was asked, which I wasn't really asked. I just went to collect my results a bit late, and they'd kind of already assigned people to combinations, and I wasn't quite strong enough to say, okay, I want to move from MPC to go to do history, literature, and divinity. This will be too much of a... Yeah, exactly. No one does that. So I then chose to do MPC, and then I also did technical graphics in the engineering drawing. So I was doing these 4 subjects, and that was by Gokomere in Mashingo. So it's like you're surrounded by all of these.
Let me pause you there a bit. Yeah. Oh no, I'm saying let me pause you there a bit. Yeah. So I'm getting you where we are. It is definitely you're now into quantum physics, working towards a PhD in those complicated things. Yeah. I'm confused, but it's okay. Like many people are watching, definitely. So I want us to then zoom into the path not taken that you want to talk about today.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you mentioned you had this many A's, this 8 A's, and you this famous MPC combination, and you're doing this. So it used to be a fancy combination, and then in technical
No, not
graphics,
anymore.
those big-headed children will be doing these 5 subjects and stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you then find yourself in this path that you then want to term the path that is not taken? How did you find yourself in this path? Was it by choice or by circumstances? And did you have any expectations as you found yourself in this path? How did you find yourself here? So let's talk about the path, how you found yourself there, and yeah.
Okay. So if I were to say which path was not taken, I would
Maybe
say
we'll
that
start from there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe we'll start from there.
So the dream and the ambition was always to go into the arts. That was the dream. And that was the path that I was quite intent on taking. And I had made a compromise that if I wasn't to go into this field of the arts, the compromise I would have would be in engineering and architecture or something like this. So my first path was law, politics, and stuff, like going this way. And then the middle ground was actually like engineering and maybe civil engineering or electrical engineering. So that was my compromise. So this is the second part. So there are actually parts not taken. So how I arrived is like, as I was explaining before, that so when I was a kid, I was quite smart, like in primary school, and I would always be, like number ones, and all of this stuff. And when I then got to high school, Gokomere is like, at least when I was there, it's like you can come from wherever you were as the best student, and then you get there is always someone who humbles you, right? So I I had these perceptions of like, okay, fine, I'm good enough to do ABCD, but then I get there and I actually realized that there are people who are differently skilled than me, who are better than me, and it helped me now realize like, okay, fine, I need to work hard. So one of the things that I then saw or realized was that I was kind of average, not average in terms of no, I was more balanced. Let me not say average. So I was more balanced in terms of I did not have like, if you were to take the top 20 results for physics, I would be like number 9, right? If you take the top 20 results for mathematics, I'd be like number 10. If you did the same for literature, I'd be like in the top 5 or whatever. I would always be there and thereabouts, like in the top there. But I was more balanced. I did not have like something that I would be like, everyone would say, is the best in that thing. So this was an advantage, but then also a disadvantage because it also makes it difficult for people to realize your skills, like your particular skills, because you're a master of all trades. You're, what do you call? A jack of all trades and a master of none. The English had escaped me. Yeah, exactly. So what then happened was that as I did my A level, I did these 4 subjects like the maths, the physics, chemistry, and technical graphics, and I dabbled a bit with economics. But then I kind of lost focus. Like I got like so much mixed up in this high school life, like you're doing sports, you're doing all of these things, and it affected like my performance in the end. And when I thought I would get something like 17 or 18 points out of 20, I ended up with 13, right? So I got 13 out of 20. And in this 13, I had an A in technical graphics. And I think a C in physics and a C in chemistry and a B in mathematics. Not a B, a D in mathematics. So I think this was the distribution I've forgotten. Which then presented a big problem because I'd already given up on law by taking this combination, and you can't go to law from this combination. So I was only now left with this middle path, the engineering path. And the circumstances in Zimbabwe are that it's quite competitive. So you can't like go into that field with the kind of grades that I had, especially the distribution. And I applied to use it. And I was told like, nah, we don't have a place for you here. And I remember that time I had these dreams of going to Ukraine to do like aircraft engineering in Kharkiv. I sit there. And it was quite possible, but it just didn't materialize. But then the second opportunity I got to apply in the same year, I was then given geography, right? So I was like, but I didn't do geography in A level. I only did it in O level. And they were like, yeah, of course, it doesn't make sense. So you can choose between physics and chemistry. So this was quite surprising and shocking to me that from A level, I'm being told that you're not good enough to do physics. That's why you have a C. But then the university thinks that you can actually do it for a degree. So it's kind of counterintuitive that the people who are not like so exceptional, who did not pass a certain way, are given the things that they kind of failed. So I was asked between chemistry and physics, and I was just like, chemistry, I hate those chemicals and alkanes and all of that stuff. I'll just choose physics because it kind of makes sense. So that's how I chose physics. I did not dream like, okay, I'll be a physicist one day or I'll do this. And then the moment you choose physics, you are now thinking of the other two parts, right? Now, almost all of my classmates from high school, those who were like quite more brilliant than me, they are like doing engineering. And if you know how the campus at USAT is like, I was staying at, I think, NC2. So you all walk out together, right? And then once you get like near Swinton or that road which crosses Swinton, it seems as if you are now separating according to how good you were. So those ones who had been great were now going to medical school, and then the engineers were now just proceeding to engineering. And then here I was just like, stopping by the faculty of science there, and then everyone would be like, see you later, see you later. And then it was just like this cycle all the time, like you are feeling like, okay, I lost here. And I would talk to my lawyer friends and acquaintances, and they would tell me all these things like, we are doing these things. Case law is like so whatever it is, and you're like, wow, you have this side of you which is feeling like I lost out big time by not doing law. I lost out big time by not being an engineer, and I'm just stuck doing physics. And you hear people telling you like, you're just gonna be a teacher, nothing happens for physicists. How many physicists do you know? And my first year was quite terrible because I would just get threes. I wasn't even motivated at all. And this was quite challenging, I think. So this is how I got to this point, and this is how I did not take those two paths. So I was pushed into a path that I had no idea what it was about. I was pushed into a path that I wasn't prepared for. And mentally, I was just like all over the place for that first year.
Okay, so now I want to talk about your journey now through the university, through the university, the path during the mud years, and then leaving the country to another country, and then leaving the other country to Germany. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get there.
So one of the things that kind of happened was that as I was now doing this physics, I remember in my first year were many, I've forgotten how many, but we were more than 20 students, 20 or 30 thereabouts. And I actually remember that as I was now like in my second year, I then began to actually like the subject. And there was a guy who was like a few streams ahead of us by the USAID then, like in physics, who was quite brilliant at it. And I now kind of began to look up to him and just looked at what he was doing and stuff like this. And for me, I then thought, okay, fine, this is where I am, and I can actually make something good out of this. And I decided to do nanotechnology, like in my, I think it was second year. And this is now what made me now fall in love with physics, because I could understand it, and I could actually find like, okay, this is going to take me places, if I may say. So from then onwards, I remember when I was in my final year, I had an internship of sorts, more like a job, an internship with it was a partnership between the University of Zimbabwe and other like donors and funders. They were researching how climate change affects Zimbabwe. And it was through this project now that I then actually found this confidence of, okay, fine, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to do A, B, C, D. And it was also through this project that I missed my first opportunity, because when I was about to finish my bachelor's, like towards the end, I made a decision that I want to leave Zimbabwe and I want to come to Germany to do my master's here. This is 2015. So I began applying. I remember I applied to multiple universities here before I even finished my bachelor's, and I got a few places, and I was quite thrilled and happy. I even applied to the UK, and I got a few places there. But so when I was now in my final year, I was feeling like, okay, this is now working out for me. Like, this physics thing is going to be good. I'm now going to Germany, and I will be like, Einstein or these guys. But then, because of the way I was doing my things, when we're now writing our final exams for like the final semester, this was, I think, in June or May 2016. I remember a day, I've forgotten what day it was in particular, but it was a Sunday, right? And I did an exam on Monday. And then on that Sunday, Zimbabwe was playing Malawi football at the National Sports Stadium, and there was no electricity in Mount Pleasant. So I was feeling bored, and I was like, with this other guy I went with, we were like, okay, guys, let's go and watch soccer at the stadium, and then we can come back and prepare for the exam, right? And we were like, this is such a good idea. And then we go there, and Zimbabwe won, I think 3-0. I've forgotten the scoreline. But at the end of the day, we actually joined a group of people who were running and dancing from the national sports right up until town, right? So we're celebrating, dancing, all of these things, and this is like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And I got to Mount Pleasant around 8, very tired, and I had promised myself I would read for the exam, the exam on the next day, like after that match, but I was so tired I just slept. And I thought I would wake up at night and just do firefighting. I woke up at 8 in the morning, an hour before the exam, and I just kind of looked at things. And unsurprisingly, I failed that course. And this is like the final semester. So mind you, I already have a place to come to Germany at this point in September. But then I failed a course, right, in the final semester. And I'm now feeling like, did I really have to go to that match? And you regret all of these things. And I then also lost a job opportunity, which was going to give me like quite an amount of money, like soon after graduating, because I now had to do remedial school. So this one decision of watching a football match kind of ruined my whole plans of coming to Germany in 2016. And I graduated. I couldn't find a job, like in the things that I wanted. And then, true to what everyone says, I became a teacher, right? So I looked for a teaching job because I was still motivated to leave, but I was saying to myself, okay, fine, let me find something to do in the meanwhile. And when I was now, I think this was now in 2017, I'd actually completely kind of given up. And then a relative of mine just showed me an advert for like scholarships to go to Russia. So this is in January. This is actually in February, early February, first week of February. So the relative showed me an advert to apply for government scholarships to go to Russia. And I was like, nah, there is no point applying for these things. They are only for connected people, and this is like on a Wednesday. And I'd actually given up on going to Germany. So I'd actually decided to apply at NAST. So I was going to apply at NAST on the Friday, like send my documents to NAST, to their Harare offices. And then my mother just pushed me, like, just apply. You never know what happens. So I took my documents to NAST and also my documents for the Russian scholarship together. And then I just put the ones at NAST, and then I just deposited, like I left the documents for Russia at the offices, like for the scholarships. And this is on a Friday. Saturday, Sunday, I don't even think about anything. I'm like waiting for the NAST results in maybe June or something like this. And then on Monday, I wasn't even expecting a call. My phone was off, or I don't know what was happening. And then my aunt calls me, right? She's like, you miss heaven by not answering your call. And I'm like, why? What happened? And she's like, you got the scholarship. So I applied for this scholarship on Friday. And then on Monday, I had gotten it. And I was like quite shocked and very happy. So on the same day that I got the scholarship, I was then also offered a job to teach at a school in Zimbabwe. So I actually spent that whole week just doing like the scholarship things and also like preparing to go and teach. So I then started teaching from like February, like teaching high school kids. And I learned a lot from this experience because it was quite humbling. Because almost all of my fellow graduates, like from my class, they were like doing other jobs and doing bigger things. Almost all of my friends from school, like high school, were already like engineers working by ZESA or Econet or whatever it is, and you're just there. You're teaching in the bush there, you know, and you are the one who had these big dreams, you know. You are the one who was like, okay, I'll do this, I'll achieve this, I'll achieve this. And it was quite a low moment, but I was like, okay, fine. I found meaning in like being in teaching, and so what then happened was that at the end of that year, I just left Sim, and then I went to do my master's in Russia. So I did a master's in physics there in Russia, in Russian. So physics on its own, it's terrible. Russian on its own, it's quite terrible. You bring them together, it's like it's a catastrophe on its own. So I managed to do my master's in Russia for 3 years. So I learned the language for like 6 months or 1 year, and I graduated with a distinction for my master's, which earned me a red gown for distinctions, and I was quite proud and happy that at least I managed to do this. So this was more like the compromise that okay, I will just go to Russia. Germany is over for me. I will need to change my dreams, but I still had this hunger to come here to Germany and do what I wanted to do now because I had accepted now fully that I'm going to be a physicist, but I wanted to become the best physicist around. So towards the end of the masters, which was like the third semester, I began to apply for a PhD, right? So what happened was that I remember I went with a friend and we wrote the IELTS, the English exams, and we didn't even prepare much because we were like, we are native speakers in Zimbabwe. We just went and I got like an 8.5, and I was like, I was happy and I was like, okay, Europe, here I come, right? So by that point, I already knew that I was going to get a distinction. This is like 6 months before graduation, because all that was left for me was to do my thesis, because I'd finished my courses. So I was like, okay, I'm getting a distinction. I'm like this, everything is set up. So I chose the schools which I wanted, like these big schools. Um, so I changed. So I started now looking into these like big schools, and I applied to. I remember there was a university in Norway which was offering a PhD, which had like this huge salary, and I was like, if I get this, I'll be good, And I applied to Germany, I applied to Austria, and then I was called for an interview at this Norwegian university, and they called me for an interview, and they said, okay, let's interview you let's say on a Monday. I do the interview, and they'll tell me their response in 2 weeks. And if you have ever applied in Norway, they list the names of applicants, they list the names of the people they interviewed, and they list the name of the person who won and why they won. So they actually do this openly. So you actually know why you didn't get like the position. So I remember there were like 84 applicants, right? And they ranked these applicants, and I was number 2 out of 84. They only needed 1, right? And when you have these big opportunities, sometimes you already start feeling like you already have it. So I was quite disappointed, but I was like, okay, many more will come. And then I did another interview. So at the beginning, I did so many interviews. I did another interview here in Germany, and I was like, yes, this is my chance. Didn't work out. I had a third one, it didn't work out. I had a fourth one, it didn't work out. Now I was now wondering, like, is there something wrong with me? Right? But then these interviews, which I thought were not working for me, were actually the best of the rejections. Because as many people who have applied like to many foreign universities, you actually realize that sometimes you don't even get a response. Right? So I remember there was a day in January 2020 when I applied to 40 PhD positions in Canada, right? So I actually set like and prepared my applications. So these were like in the same field, but at different universities and different professors. So I actually sat down and prepared, for each application, and I had this one for this university, this one for this professor, this one for this professor. Up until now, none has responded, right? Nothing. The emails were correct. Everything was fine. Nobody responded. This was so crushing to me. I can laugh now because it doesn't matter anymore. But at that point, this was like a serious source of chest pain. And I was quite disappointed. And I even began to doubt, like, all of these things. But with each time that I would do these things, it just it looked like it was going worse and worse and worse. And until I got to a point again where I actually gave up. I was like, no, I'm not going to do any of these things. So I finished applying in March, right? I stopped applying. I was like, okay, when I graduate in June, I'm just going home, right? And I'll do whatever is there. And then I was then offered a PhD by this Russian university. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll take this since I can't find anything else. And while he's discussing how to take this PhD with this Russian university, I then realized that I couldn't actually take it. It was impossible for me to do it for logistical reasons. And I then saw another door closed. But what happened was one day I was praying with a friend over the phone. And what necessitated this prayer was that on that day, it was a Friday, right? I had slept early, like 4 in the morning, right? That's when I slept. And I woke up around 1 in the afternoon. As soon as I woke up, I received like 4 rejection letters in that moment. And I was like, now this is not happening. And I just called my friend and we were talking about it. And the friend was like, let's pray about it. And then we prayed. And then I got 2 invitations to do interviews, right? One was in Belgium and then another one was in Germany. So the prayer that I'd always made when I'd been applying for all of these things was that, Lord, may you give me like the PhD which is designed for me, like the one which is only for me. Don't give me so many options that are not meant for me. I don't want to make a choice, but I want like you to show me the path, because I've always planned my own paths in the past, and each time, whatever path I plan, it doesn't come out. So I was saying, okay, fine, I'll no longer take a path, right? It's now you who should give me a path. And so when I got these 2 interviews, I chose to do the first one on the Thursday and then the Belgium one on the Friday, right? This was the choice I did. And I had 2 weeks to prepare for them, for these 2 interviews. And we continued praying and praying. And after all of these prayers, I just felt like my prayer had been answered there and then. Like I felt this calmness, I felt this peace and conviction that everything was going to be fine. And it was one of those prayers that I still remember up until now, exactly what it was and what we said. And it happened that when I did the interview for Germany on Thursday, I was convinced that I got the job, right? I was convinced, even from the first few sentences, I was quite convinced that this is it. And when it came time when the interview was over, we prayed like to give thanksgiving and to actually pray that they will open the visa application processes, because at that time they were not accepting visas. So we actually prayed that this job is mine, this is now me, and the visa should be done. And I didn't even prepare for the Belgium interview. I just went in the interview and I apologized for not preparing, and I just did it routinely. But I was now confident. And when the response came that I had actually gotten the position, I was quite happy and relieved. And to me, it felt like I learned the lesson that I learned in this episode was that whenever I was making parts, whenever I was making plans for these parts and whatever I was thinking, as long as it was me who was planning, right? As long as it was me who was thinking what it was, nothing was going to come out of it, right? But at each point that I surrendered, that I gave up, that's when a new opportunity would come. So when this opportunity came, I was still in Russia, and very few people knew actually that this was happening. And many people just saw me leave and they thought I was going home. But then I came here for in September, in August, September, and that's the current position that I have. So it has been a long time that since 2016 I wanted to come to do this. And I'll add one funny detail is that in 2016 when I applied, I wanted to go to a particular university and work under a particular professor, right? One particular person. And then, so as an example, this would be like applying to go to UZ to work under Professor A. I then got admitted at NAST, right? Which is not UZ, but then one of my co-supervisors is actually Professor A from the other university that I wanted to go in 2016. So this is actually this actually came out like more like destiny or more like the designed path. So everything came out of this in a nice way, if I were to say.
Wow. That's beautiful. And it's amazing how God answers exactly as to the way sometimes you want, but it looks like you're going the other way around, like what the Israelites did. There, God deliberately decides He's going to use the longer way, which is not the way that they hope they're going to take. But ultimately,
Yeah.
they got to where exactly they wanted to be and where you wanted them to be. So
Yeah.
I'm listening and thinking of those 40 emails to Canada on one day among the many emails and trying and whatever. So what kept you grounded? What kept you motivated to still think, well, I can still wake up and do this even after you got to a point where you were quitting and everything? What kept you grounded among all this?
So I think maybe for me the main motivation was that I was quite convinced like when I was doing my bachelor's now at UZ, I was quite convinced that I wanted to become successful in physics. I was quite convinced that this is the path that I wanted. And I was now convinced that I really needed to come to an environment which would allow me to like be the best that I can be, like to actually realize what I thought I could become. So, and I knew and I understood very well that given the dynamics in my country, my country was not the place for this. And I was quite convinced. And this conviction then made me feel like, you still have to like strive. But there were times also when I was about to give up and friends, family, prayer, going to church, and like having like a network around you which actually believes in you and which actually understands what you are trying to achieve and how difficult it is. An aunt of mine would always tell me like, don't give up, like keep on doing it, keep on praying, it will happen. And these things like they would always like motivate me, and I would always feel like, okay, fine, I don't need to be afraid that much. I can still like work hard and I'll still achieve what I want to achieve. But to be honest, like it's quite difficult sometimes chasing a dream because the thing about these things, like what you alluded to about the example of the Israelites, is that sometimes we are not prepared for the dreams that we think we want. Like we know that we want to be doctors, but we don't have the skills in us to be good doctors. And until we are ready, you will still face pain, until you are ready for the thing that you are destined to be, you will still face pain. And if you don't learn from those mistakes that you are making, the pain will continue. So for me, it was that I think the first time I had learned that I should not just plan things on my own, but I should always involve God. But for somehow I'd forgotten this whole lesson because I was now like, successful, or like progressing how I was thinking. So God would always like bring me back, like, okay, dude, you feel like you can run fast, you come back. And this to me was what complicated the stuff. But what kept me grounded was that realization that I can still achieve what I want, and also the family and the network I had around me.
Okay, wow, interesting. Sometimes God gives us the things, and when we are ready for the titles and stuff,
Yeah.
not when you just think, no, I want to wake up and do this by this time and stuff like that. So
Mm.
we are running out of time, but we're going to try and quickly go through this. So what lessons have you learned in this thing? You highlighted some of the lessons you learned. I don't know if you have any other lessons that you may want to add on top of what you have learned already, what you have highlighted. What is this? What have you learned in this long journey, the journey that He has found you? Not being where you are. Thank you. Patience says all things, not some, work together for the good for those who love Him. And thanks for sharing the story of hope. So what have you learned in this journey? So many setbacks, so many discouragement. And etc, and accepting something that you never felt you'd find yourself in. Like you're saying, you're thinking, I'm doomed to be a teacher and stuff like that, and you're thinking in the environment that I am may not be the best. So what have what lessons did you garner in this whole process, in 2 minutes?
So in 2 minutes, I think the lessons that I've learned, the main lesson is that we have different paths for each and every one of us, and that you should never really seek to compare yourself with someone else. And also that when you think you know best what to do, stop and think again, because you might be missing something. And that it's quite important to never lose belief in yourself. That if you understand what you mean, what you want to be, and what you think you can amount to, always stand by it, because there is a statement which says that if you are wandering, you can never be lost. Like if you just leave your home and you just walk around, you can never be lost because you have no destination to go to. You have no objective to meet. But when you have objectives, you can always realize, okay, I'm not where I want to be, and you can always recalibrate. So I've learned that you should always believe in yourself, in your objectives, and believe in God, and always work hard to achieve what you feel you should achieve, because no one else will do the work for you.
Oh, thank you so much. So what should you tell someone who's struggling? I think it answers what you have just said. What you have just said right now. What you've just said right now, that our paths are different. Sometimes you're struggling to find yourself in certain fields, and sometimes you have this ideal that you want to do this that is different from what you're used to. So if you could be in a conversation with younger Joseph back then, what would you tell him? What advice would you tell him with what you know now?
So I think I'll talk to four stages of Joseph. So the child Joseph, the teenage Joseph, the early 20s Joseph, and the Joseph from yesterday. As a child, I wanted to be so many things, right? Um, I wanted to be like a president who motivated me, or I wanted to be like this sports person who motivated me. I wanted to be all of these things. But in the end, I forgot that I have to be myself, right? I forgot that I needed to be a child. I needed to actually think through like my own wishes, my own things, and actually live them. So as a child, I just tell myself to keep dreaming and not be scared, because I remember there was a conference. I would sometimes talk to my chemistry teacher in A level, and I would tell him that, greet me now, because quite soon people would be paying millions just to greet my hand. This is like now to the teenage guy, and people would laugh sometimes at these things, and I would doubt myself. So I would tell myself as a teenager that, always believe in yourself, and don't listen to the external noise. If you dream big, you can miss big, you can miss by a big margin, or you can hit something else along the way. And if I was now talking to my 20-year-old something, when I was 2022, I would just say that you should never question yourself. You should never question God, and you should never ever doubt that what God has set up for you. You should never doubt it, because these things, the moment you doubt, you can even lose so much more than you potentially stand to lose. So, in all of these things, maybe hope would be the main message. Like, always believe in yourself, always hope for better things, always have hope in God, always stay true to the path. And to the joys of yesterday, I would say that never allow victory to defeat you. Like, when you have struggled to get to a destination, you always get complacent, right? But never allow the success to make you feel like you have achieved everything, because you are not yet there. I'm not yet where I want to be. So I should always stay humble, stay ambitious, and also allow myself to be proud of what I have achieved. So these are the messages that I would tell myself. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. They say good is the enemy of best. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. What would be your parting words to the audience as we come to the close?
I think if I were to say something, maybe the main point would be that in life we are all born, like, we are all born kind of the same way, but for different purposes. And in life, we all have these dreams that we feel like are the best ones. But being denied a dream is not the end of the world, because having a door closed, like what they say, is usually the opening of another door. Having a path cut, a path that you are not taking, means you are going to take another different path that you did not know. So now I'm on a different path. I'm happy. I think I'm doing something quite meaningful, and something that I never thought I would do, and something that gives me like great motivation to do more. So the message would be that when you face like closed doors, when you feel like nothing is moving, just keep on pushing, because you don't know exactly like when your break is coming. But also, when you face these things, ask yourself what you are doing wrong, because until you learn this lesson, you will still meet the same things. So if you continue walking barefoot in paths which have thorns, you will continue getting prickled. But if you change your methods and you realize, okay, you need to change a path, you can see the better path which God has prepared for you.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So thank you, Joseph, for accepting to be part of the show and coming and being vulnerable and share with us your journey. This part that is not, that was not popular. That is not taken. The path that you have left and how God has ultimately led you. So yeah, as we come to the close, we're going to read our closing quote that comes from the book Patriarchs and Prophets. It's from page 290, paragraph 3. It says, the path that God leads, the path where God leads the way may lie through the desert or the sea, but it is a safe path. So whether it leads through where I think this is a desert, this is a sea, I think I don't want to be in the sea. If God is in it, it's a safe path. That is what the quote says. So may God bless you, and I hope we've learned so much from this conversation. And as always, let's stay safe wherever we are. And till we meet again next week for another episode of more lessons to learn from. God keep you safe. God bless you.
When peace like a river are tended away, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. and my